I love folk tales. They're always interesting and they give a unique look at the lives of the people who lived decades or centuries ago. One of the most unique folk tales that seems very Canadian is the story of the Bewitched Canoe. One version of the story begins with a nobleman named Gallery who loved to hunt. He loved it to the point that he didn't go to Sunday Mass. Such a thing was not accepted back then, and as punishment for his sin, he was condemned to fly forever through the night skies chased by horses and wolves. The story is very similar to other wild hunt stories that existed in various cultures in Europe. Now, as French settlers arrived in New France, they exchanged stories with the indigenous peoples, and the story of the nobleman combined with indigenous people's stories about flying canoes, and there are several variations of the story. One variation was that after a night of drinking on New Year's Eve, a group of voyageurs working at a remote timber camp wanted to see their girlfriends and wives. The problem was they were 500 kilometers away. The only way to get there and back in time was to make a pact with the devil. With that pact, the canoe would travel through the air to their destination, but as part of the bargain, they could not say God's name, nor touch the cross of any church steeple while in the canoe. If they did so, the devil gets their souls. So to keep their heads clear, the men promised to not touch any rum. They soon passed over the landscape, the Gatineau River, and reached Montreal. They spent the night with their girlfriends and wives, took part in festivities, and then headed back to their work camp. Unfortunately, the navigator had been drinking, and he steered them off course. While passing over Montreal, they barely missed a church steeple, and then they ended up in a snowdrift. The navigator took the Lord's name in vain, and those with him bound and gagged him out of fear the devil would take their souls. The navigator would get free and begin swearing again. The canoe then crashes into a tree, and the men all fall out, landing on the ground. Now, there are different versions of the ending. In one, the men fly their canoe through hell for eternity. In another, they appear in the skies every New Year's Eve. In another, they escape the terms with the devil and are free. The story has been the subject of a Canada Post stamp, referenced in various stories, made into a National Film Board animated film, as well into songs, and it was even part of the opening ceremony of the 2010 Winter Olympics. If you enjoy Canadian history, then check out my podcast, Canadian History X, available on all podcast platforms.